on the cloud. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks so much, Steve, for agreeing to talk to our students. We really appreciate your time. And you've been really keen on talking to our students, despite the fact that we had real ups and downs over the past few weeks that made it impossible to hold the session on time. But fortunately, we have you today talking to our students who have been really resilient and keen on learning and continuing their learning journey despite the unprecedented, unimaginable situations they are mostly in. From the names that I recognize, I know that most of these students are living in tents and shelters. And I really appreciate that they made the effort to join the session, despite the fact that their living conditions are really extremely challenging and difficult. But this is really highly appreciated that we see you today, guys, listening to Steve and contributing to the session. So Steve, the floor is yours. We are really looking forward to learning from your session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ahmed. It's a real, I'm very happy to be here in the room with you all. I'm certainly not happy at the situation you find yourself in, and I just want to acknowledge that and offer my support. And Ahmed told us, Martin organized Ahmed to come and speak to us, and I know Martin's here in the room now, which was a real turning point for a lot of us because it really brought home your situation. It also brought home something which we all find incredibly impressive, and that is your dedication to learning and education. And Ahmed assured me that the best way we could support is to come and do things like this. So here I am. I want to talk to you this evening about this notion of interpretation and interpretive analytical writing. It's a big thing for me. I work as an academic skills advisor in a university in Melbourne, the University of Melbourne, actually, in Melbourne, Australia. And a lot of what I do is working one-to-one with students, a lot of the times on their writing, on their written work. So production of academic written work. And one of the big gaps, the number one thing I often don't see is students being analytical and in particular, not being interpretive. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. And part of around doing academic or completing academic writing to the way that we would like to is to meet expectations of our academic staff. You know, when you're writing things for Ahmed, you are trying to meet his expectations about what he wants you to do or what he'd like you to see. So I want you to think about that. It's one of the questions I'm asking. What do you think is expected of you at university level in your academic writing? I'll come back to this. I just want you to think about it. I do want to acknowledge that the ideas presented in this workshop are based upon ideas and perspectives that value analysis and education contexts where students are expected to be actively engaged with their learning. Now, it's not to say that that's the best way of learning, but it does allow students to really put themselves into the educational context and act within the critical expectations expected of this type of study context. So, key expectations. If you'd like to, I'd love you to share any ideas in chat. If anybody had any, including Martin, Ahmed, George, anybody. What do you think? What are some of the expectations of students in terms of writing at university? What do we want? What do we expect? If it's easier to speak, then you are more than welcome to speak. I'd love to hear from you. Any ideas welcome. It's sometimes hard to be the first, right? Martin, what do you think?
I'll say something because I can't stay too long because I have to go to a
sure.
a festival of short films from Indonesia.
Oh,
That's
lovely.
what I'm going to soon. Okay, around the corner from here. But I think a lot of students think they have to swallow a dictionary to write at university, and they're expected to use very formal, intelligent sounding words. I think that's a common expectation. I don't know if it's the same for everyone here, but I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, I think people certainly expect it. In terms of expect that they think they have to do it, and certainly you don't. You can. I think the big thing is clarity. Some of the key other expectations are that we do research, we show our research in our writing. Subdued, reflective essays that show thoughts and ideas. Brilliant. I love that. I love the reflective part too. Thank you. Good contribution. Momtaza, clear and focused ideas, formal academic style, great. And original work, I mean no plagiarism. Perfect. And if we're using any Gen AI, we're not using it to write our work for us. So that also speaks to some of the plagiarism, Momtaza, that you could be speaking about too. Okay. Thank you very much. Good contributions. That's brilliant. Okay, let's press on. So some of the key expectations are one of the big ones is around relevance. So anytime you set a task, the key expectation is you answer the question. Be on task. Okay, that sounds obvious, but that's how we do it. Write according to the task type. So there are different task types at university. I'll go through some of them in a few moments, and we need to understand they have different structures and styles. Often at university, you'll get a paper and you'll have a word count. So a typical word count could be 1,200 words or 2,500 words. You need to write to that count, okay? Something I said before is research and reading. We do a lot of our research now through the net, through databases in the library, if we can access them, but we need to show that in our writing. Write critically and interpretively, which is obviously the sort of centerpiece of what I'm talking about today. And by that, I mean not just describing. I'll come back to exactly what I mean by that a little bit later. Write cohesively. When you hear the word cohesion in academic work, it just means the ideas are linked. They stick together, okay? Consider language tone. I think Momtaza said this, formal language, okay? And so by that, we don't mean, we mean, not using, like I just said, all right? That's a sort of a spoken form. So that's not how we write. Produced finished edited work. And the key number one expectation is the one at the top there, is to be on task, okay? Everything else needs to follow from that. Because if you're not on task, if you're not answering the question, the other things don't make any, they don't matter, okay? So if you're doing good research on the wrong topic, it's wasted, all right? So we need to be on topic. The big number one problem that I see in my one-to-one situations is this. It's the absence of critical interpretive thinking. All right, so that's the thing I will get to and I will focus on. So to do this, we need to have a process to produce work. And I want to take you through some of the steps of this process. So the first one is to think about something I just said before, is to think about what is the thing I'm doing, right? What is the task that I'm being asked to do? And there are different types of tasks at university. Essay is a typical one, a lit review, reflective paper, report, annotated bibliography. Now, you may not know what some of these are. Essay, I'm guessing you do know. You may not know what annotated bibliography is, though, but we'll go through this stuff. So what we need to ask ourselves the first question, and the first question is, what does the reader expect to see and read? Okay, so in an essay, we might think that the expectation is it's usually not in the first person. We don't usually write I in an essay, generally, not all the time, but generally. It often takes a position. It's formal, it's paragraph based. It's got a three-part structure, intro, body, conclusion, and it's referenced. A lit review is a review of literature. It's not just a description, it's a review, okay? So it must have critical elements. A report, again, not usually in the first person, sections, headings, recommendations, it's analytical. A reflective paper, what you learned or gained from an experience. So a reflection, that's why I was happy that Sajud talked about this before. A reflection is you looking back at something and trying to tell the reader what you learned or gained from it. Now, this is a little bit different because a reflection is in the first person, because it's about you and your experience. So if you are asked to write a reflective paper, it is in the first person, it is about you. The last one is an annotated bibliography, and it's a list, it's like a reference list, but with a summary for each reading, okay? And it has some analysis. Now, what is common to each of these tasks, each of these 5 different university tasks? It's analysis and critique, something I said before, right? It's present in everything we do. And don't think of writing as just writing. It's not just a written thing, because at university, you need to be able to discuss your written work. All right. So it's not an isolated event in and of itself. It has to be talked about in class. It's debated with other students. You're talking about what you're writing about. You defend it to your teachers. You explain it in oral presentations. Okay. So this understanding of there being different tasks and them being analytical and you having to be analytical is something we need to understand. Step 2 is to carefully analyze the task and ask yourself, what do I have to do with this topic, with this question? The key thing I like to talk about here is highlighting key information. And then we do this because we want to make sure that this highlighted language appears in the response. Now, if we get a response, and let's just look at an example, okay? When we get a writing task, I'm going to show you one in a moment, we want to examine it carefully. Now, as an example, using a 1,200-word essay. And this topic is one Ahmed gave me before. I think it would be something you guys are familiar with. Gen AI, generative AI, being a disruptive agent in education, particularly in relation to academic writing. What is ethical use? Discuss the advantages and disadvantages of using Gen AI platforms to support written work. Okay, it's a pretty standard question. It's asking for position. Okay, so what we need to do here right now is to analyze it and think, what do I have to do? And if we remember our first responsibility is answer the question. So we need to know what it's asking of us. Okay, so the task type, what's the topic? What do we have to do? How many sections? Okay, the task type is an essay. The topic is generative AI and writing, student writing. What do we have to do? We have to look at ethical use, advantages, disadvantages. And there are 1, 2, 3 major sections. Okay, so I know if you're looking at this on your iPhone, you probably don't have a great view of this. So when you do get a chance later, tomorrow or the next day, to have another look at this, perhaps even on a bigger screen if you can get one, or just take your time with it, and look at the slides that Ahmed is going to send you, then you can spend a bit more time looking at this and having a real think about it. So understanding the task type is our first question. The second question is, what am I writing about? The third question is, what sections do I need to have? That's the body sections, right? Don't worry about the intro and conclusion right now. What do I have to do? And how many sections are there? All right, that's the structural question. Okay, so this idea of, there's the topic again. Again, I know it's small, and I apologize for that, but again, you can look at these hopefully again a bit later. So if we want to use our content language in the answer, language like ethical use, Gen AI needs to appear, right? Advantages needs to appear. Disadvantages needs to appear. Okay, so we need to show we are on task, because that's our first responsibility, be on task. We need to show that by using key content language. So we have our key content language. It's there in bold. And what we want to do is also use some of our cohesive language. Okay, so things like defines, or there are 3 clear advantages: first, second, finally, things like that. Okay, disadvantages, one of these, and further, a second disadvantage. as a result. Now, what that language does is it starts to stick our content ideas together. And we can also call it signposting. Okay, I'm sure Ahmed's talked to you about this. So if you say there are 3 clear advantages here, we signpost it and say the first one, second, the third. It makes it easier for the reader to navigate the story. And the other thing, I want to give you a first look at this idea of interpretive language. Okay, so things like this is important as or because. Okay, this is worth noting. This means, this is important because, this suggests that. And you can probably hear already that this language becomes important because it enables you to show something, why something matters. Okay? Gen AI can be a platform to generate text, and this is important to note because it can be misused. You're giving the reasoning, the interpretation, why this matters to the reader. And I'll come back to this because it's really important, because academic readers love this type of thing, love it. Okay. Okay, next part of the step, next step in the process, sorry, is to plan and organize our ideas. Now we know that we're going to be writing in 3 main ideas for this example: ethical use, advantages of Gen AI use, disadvantages of Gen AI use. Okay, so we need to think about our word counts that we talked about before. And a real tip, when you're thinking about word count, analysis should always, if you can, analysis should always have more of the word count than description. So description is telling us what, analysis tells us why it matters, why it's important. If you can put more analysis in, that's really, really good. And then we're going to be researching. So we'll do some reading, we find information, we read it. And a big tip, if you start to become more of a researcher and follow in the footsteps of someone like Ahmed, who's a great researcher and a great writer, then you need to start bringing this information, this research into your work. Okay, and we do that by bringing in bullet points into the part of the plan we think they belong. Okay, now this is a really good time-saving mechanism. Don't just take notes by author and group them together. Take your notes and put them into the part of the plan you think they belong. Okay? And then we're ready to start writing. Okay? Sorry, Ramiz, I think I'm getting some feedback through your, I might just mute you if that's okay. Okay, great. Then we're ready to start writing. Okay, now when we're ready to start writing, we should have 3, in this case, 3 body sections worth of work. Okay, worth of ideas we've put into the right sections. We've put advantages there, we've put disadvantages there, we've put ethical use there. So we've put the bullet points into the part of the paper we think they belong. Okay, now this is super important because it gives you a structural order. Okay, and this takes away a lot of writer's block. You know what, that feeling when you don't know what to write, don't know where to start? Okay, this takes away some of that feeling. So start anywhere in the body you feel confident. Sections become paragraphs. Oops, we got some stuff in chat happening. Okay, great, thanks, Dua. Okay. Martin, see you later if you have to go. Okay. Start anywhere you feel confident. Sections are divided into paragraphs. Okay, so this idea of this isn't just a big blob of information. This becomes paragraphed. Sorry. And the intro and conclusion, you can write these last. Now, the intro has 2 functions. In any bit of work, the introduction has 2 functions. One is to, the first one is to set the context. This says, this is what I'm writing about. And then you move into the position. This essay examines, this essay looks at, this essay argues, this essay proposes, rather than I propose, right? If we're writing in the 3rd person, it'll be this essay. And it's okay to say this essay will examine, but I think it sounds better and stronger to say this essay examines, this essay proposes, this essay argues. So for positioning, that thesis positioning, use the simple present tense. I'm not sure how that yellow line got there, but if it could be rubbed out, that'd be great. I'm just not sure how to do that. Okay, and the conclusion. Now the conclusion, a lot of people just write a sub. That was a green one. Thanks, Ahmed. Oh God, that's okay.
I
Now
was trying to erase it, but it added another color.
You were looking for the eraser. Hang on. Oh dear. Let's see if we can find. Should I? Oh no, you've got rid of your own. See if you can get rid of the other one. In the conclusion, we're looking not merely to summarize the paper. All right. Don't just say this essay looked at ethical use advantages and disadvantages. Okay, because the reader thinks I know that. I just read that. Okay, so try to actually conclude something, and the conclusion might be that ethical use looks like this. Ethical use is planning, brainstorming, clearing up words, but this unethical use is not to use it to write your work. All right, that could be the conclusion, for example. The other thing is that, and students classically overwrite their introduction. Intro and conclusion should be about 5% of the word count each. Okay, so for a 1,200 word paper, it's about 50 to 100 words tops. Yeah, the main part of what you're doing is in the body, which to me makes sense. Okay, the last thing we're going to do is finalize and submit our paper. All right, now I would, if I were you, look, if you can print it out, great. If you can't, read it out loud is a good way to hear every word that's happening in the paper. Okay, so some of the key questions we need to ask ourselves: am I answering the question? Do I know the sequence? Am I being analytical and interpretive? Is my positioning clear? Is my writing linked? Is it logical? Is it cohesive? Do I know where to research? Have I done some reading, if I can? Referencing, once you get into a system where you have to use referencing, like APA or Harvard, one of those citation systems, get to learn it yourself and get on top of it early. And then that last one about formal and informal tone. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the building blocks or some of the parts of academic writing. Sorry, we've got some questions. All right, Mohammed, thanks for giving us the opportunity to learn. Thank you, Mohammed. I'm glad you're getting something out of this. I appreciate that. Sama, can you explain more about the conclusion? Sure. So the conclusion, a lot of students I work with, they use the conclusion to write, this essay did X, Y, Z, right? So they'll say something like, this essay looked at the ethical considerations of using Gen AI to produce writing. It looked at the advantages and then it looked at the disadvantages, the end. And Ahmed, do you agree? Most academics don't really like that type of conclusion. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say, yes.
Yeah, and the sort of the better conclusion seems to be, to me, this is what I now know. All right. So having looked at this, it's clear that, or it seems to be that, the ethics of Gen AI are still unclear. But what is clear is that we don't need it to write our own work. We don't need it to do the work for us. That type of conclusion. Sama, I hope that helps you. Ramiz, you have a question? Go ahead.
This is Ramiz Maisar from Pakistan. I am very grateful to Sir Jamal Saab for giving us this beautiful opportunity, for providing great minds who constructively guide us on different things, especially in the world of academic literature. So
Pleasure.
I have a question. I have a question regarding generating Gen AI. Most of the people throughout the globe, ChatGPT is widely used in academic writings, especially research articles, there are many concerns. And what I have a question that if I ask ChatGPT to make some outline for my topic after giving it a title that I am intending to write an article on this topic, but I am unclear how to write its methodological section. So while prompting this to ChatGPT, how if it provides me outline to compile a draft of research method section, so is it good to make the paragraphs of those outlines given by the ChatGPT? I had this question.
Mm. Yeah, that's
Thank you
good.
so
That's
much.
a really, really good question. Thank you, Ramiz. The more you use it to generate content, the less I would advise to do that. Okay. But to use it to generate an outline, like a suggestion of what the structure could be in point form, and you think to yourself, okay, good, that looks logical. I can follow that structure. I can write to that. I think that's okay. All right. If it's essentially saying do A, B, C, and then D, but it's not giving you the content, it's giving you just a flow, an idea flow, I think that's fine, right? So Ramiz, the clear thing for me is that ultimately it's you producing the work. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much.
Does
Thank you
it?
so much, sir.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ramiz. Yeah. Good question. Okay. Good. All right. We'll go back to this. I'm just mindful of time. I don't want to keep you all day. I'm sure Ahmed has lessons and things planned. Okay. So how long should a paragraph be? Oops. Sorry. Let's jump to. Oh no. Sorry. I've got a bit of lag here for some reason. All right, there's no set length to paragraphs. It's kind of a trick question. A paragraph is an idea unit. It's not a length unit, okay? So any page of your work will have 2 to 4 to 5 paragraphs, okay? It won't have 1, it won't have 15, it'll have something like this, okay? It's important for paragraph construction that they're coherent. That means they make sense and they are cohesive, they link. Okay, so do the ideas in the paragraph make a logical order sense? And do the paragraphs which follow each other, does that make sense? So you've got paragraph cohesion and logic within the paragraph, that's micro. And then you've got paragraph cohesion and logic coherence at the larger level, the whole paper. This paragraph follows this one, and that sequence is logical. Okay, I hope that makes sense too. All right, so here's a paragraph. Ahmed, did they get the slides before this, or is this the first time they're seeing these?
This is the first time because I wasn't able to send PPT slides in a WhatsApp channel. I don't know why it rejected sending. Maybe
Okay.
copyright or something.
Okay. All right, sure. All right, so look, just take I don't know, take a minute to read this. Because we'll use this paragraph a couple of times. Okay, if you're finding it hard to see this on your iPhone, I'll read it, okay? There are 3 key advantages of Gen AI use in supporting the production of writing. The first of these is that it is available at any time. All the student needs is a connection to the internet. Platforms such as ChatGPT do not require breaks or holidays. They work all night and weekends and are, therefore, always available to students. This is important because students may require answers to questions or feedback on a paper at a time that a human advisor may not be available. Additional to and a part of this availability is Gen AI being emotionally available to students in that it offers no judgment about their writing, and as a result, it may be less anxiety inducing and embarrassing to show work to an AI. What this points to is the value of a non-judgmental, active and accessible agent being available to students to support them in the production of academic writing. This is a sample paragraph, okay? Just a sample. So what we have here is our opening sentence, which gives us the key content, and it gives us the positioning. For this part, 3 key advantages. And this is going to look at one of them. The idea is that this is one part of the advantages, that it's available anytime. And then the support sentences give direct support to that. And then we have a wrap-up sentence signaled by what this points to. It's like a wrap-up. And what we have in the bolded black font is our cohesive markers. The first of these, such as, therefore, additional to, as a result, all right? That's the type of language I talked about before. And we have our interpretive phrasing. This is important because what this points to. I'm going to come back to this writing again, because for me, this is super, super important we understand this. Here it is again. So we've got, I'm showing to you in a different way, just to really make clear the cohesive devices and the referent links. So when we say the first of these means the key advantages, okay? It means Gen AI. They means the platforms. It, again, means Gen AI. There means the students. Them means the students. This is what gives you the cohesion, the linking, okay? So you have your content, and we're linking it together by things like first, second, therefore, but also with things like these, they, it. This is what gives us our connection in the work, okay? And then again, we have our interpretive phrasing. This is important. What this shows is, what this means is, this points to, this highlights, this suggests that. All of that language is super, super important to show our interpretation. So, critical literacy is what we're moving to now. This is sort of the central thing of what I wanted to talk to you about. So it's this idea of actively applying, analyzing, synthesizing, evaluating, all right? And in contrast to this is just acquiring, just listening, just retaining information, all right? We want to challenge it and discuss it. So it's the idea of active versus passive study technique. So why, you might be asking or thinking, why do we put so much emphasis on this? Why do we talk about this so much? It's because the act of being critical and engaged and active shows that you are deep learning, you're engaged with learning, okay? And this might apply to you by when you're listening, when you're reading, when you're listening in class, when you're reading textbooks, is how do you position yourself? What do you think? What's your reaction to this? When you're writing, when you're producing written work or assessments, how are you showing that? And in class time, how do you discuss ideas? How do you participate? Okay. All right. So we have another couple of questions here from Mohammed. As a learner of English language, how can I acquire vocabulary that helps me to write a good paragraph? I'll come back to this at the end, Mohammed, so we'll come back to that question. Sema asks, could strict rules of paragraphing sometimes reduce creativity in writing, especially in cultures with strong oral storytelling traditions? Absolutely, Sema, that's a great point, absolutely. So flexibility, Sema, is the key. You have to write within the context of what you're expected to do. Okay, that's why the first thing I talked about was expectations. Okay, so if the expectation of your audience is that you adhere to those strict rules, then you need to. Okay, and yes, it might reduce creativity. Yes, it might. Okay, so things like George works for a journal. You're producing a journal, sorry, not work for a journal, you're producing one, right? They have rules about how you're going to produce that work and what you're going to do, how long it is, how it should be expressed, okay? But sometimes in other contexts, you don't have those rules, and you can perhaps be more flexible. So I hope that answers your question. Mohammed, I will come back to your question a little bit later, okay? I hope that's all right. Okay. So, elements of critical literacy. This is sort of the key part of what I'm getting at, really. We have a descriptive or reporting element. This is where you describe what you're reading, what the authors did, what they discussed, what they found, what they showed, what they proved, all right? Now, you have to do this. Of course you do, because it's a context for the next part. But don't just stop there. And I'm telling you, most students do, in fact, stop there, okay? So if you do stop there, you'll get a shopping list of descriptive work. What we want to do is shift into the analysis, the analytical critical part, the interpretation, which is why something is important, and critique is the limitations or the strengths or solutions to problems. Okay, so this is what, this is so what or why. Okay, and this second part is crucial. It's super important. So academic readers like the first part, academic readers, beg your pardon, love the second part. Okay, so when you're being analytical and critical, this is what they really want to see. This is what they value. Okay, so some of our starting questions when we're reading: is it relevant to me? Who are these people? When was it done? Okay, and these are descriptive questions which will give us descriptive answers. We have to have these. I'll say that again. What's the position? What perspectives did they have? How did they do this? This is our critical questioning starting. What's their position? Do I agree with it? Do other people agree with it? Which is some wider critical questions. Has this been argued in other places? Do they agree with this research? What are the gaps? What are the strengths? And this is again our critical questions. And then we have wider questions. Things like, do we think this research is important? Is it significant? Are there real big ideas coming out of this? And the last one, how does the previous work inform what we are doing? Okay, so when we're asking these questions, we're going to be getting critical answers. Okay, and this is what we want to be doing. So when we're reporting, okay, at this stage, our writing is descriptive. Evans found, Uchida showed. We can use the past tense for a simple finding. For a finished event or a finding. If the idea is something we still think, in English academic writing, we can use a simple present tense, even if it is from the past. So we can say Wright believes, Wright and Luo argue, okay? Except if it's a really clearly long past, like we wouldn't say Socrates argues. That sounds a bit weird because the guy lived 2,000 years ago, right? So if we want to connect the past to now, we use the present perfect tense. So has shown that employment has increased. They're our sort of basic three tenses that we're working with. Okay, now let's move away from the descriptive into the interpretive and show us how to do that. Okay, so what we have here is a little brief couple of sentence. Sorry. In the next section, production capability became the focus. In the analysis of the outputs of technology, Evans showed that the method was successful, and this was important because. So it's this shift from the description to the interpretation, which is signaled by this was important because it showed that it could be done. The theory could be done in practice. Then another example. Wang et al. Reevaluated each set of outputs and they found a revealing new set of responses. This is description. Then we shifted into interpretation. Bruce argues these findings were crucial. So this is interpretation and synthesis. And the good thing is we're starting to show some positioning: successful, important, revealing, crucial, significant. That shows our critical voice. Now, in English, there's a lot of great language we can use to show our interpretation. So it's language like this. This is significant because this calls attention to, this highlights. What this means is this is significant. This is worth noting. All right. There's an example. Overuse of Gen AI may result in what they call cognitive offloading, which highlights a potential problem that the student is not engaged deeply in their learning. This matters because da 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 da. So this idea of saying which highlights that this matters because it's your voice, it's you, right? It's you emerging in the writing. And students often say to me, how do I get me into the writing? How do I show me? Where's me? I'm using readings, I'm using ideas. Where do I get into the writing? And this is how you can do it. Okay? Because everything which comes after this is you talking. It's when you say this is important because, you are saying, I think this is important because. Or when you say this shows us that the theory was possible, it's you saying, I'm telling you the theory was possible. And I want you to know that I know this is important. Okay. And that becomes a very powerful language tool. It's great. It gives you a really, really good voice. I hope this is clear. Ahmed, is this kind of, I hope it's clear.
It's super clear, Steve, honestly. I mean, this is what really our students need, focusing on their voice and knowing
Lovely.
that it matters in writing, and highlighting the importance of including an interpretive aspect in writing, not just describing things. And I think students will agree with me that this is a need for most of them.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And it's a universal need. Okay. So it's you guys writing in Palestine, it's students writing in Melbourne, it's students writing in Paris, it's students writing in London. This is what people like you, Ahmed, want them to do. Or people like me say, yeah, that's what we're looking for. And it does, it's empowering because it gives you an academic voice and it puts you really into the writing. Okay, so let's shift a little bit into the other aspect of an analysis, which is critique. Okay, and in critique, we're saying here's a possible issue with the writing or the idea, or maybe even a strength. Okay, so here's one. In terms of the disadvantages of using Gen AI for writing production, Fan et al. Propose that overuse may result in dependency and metacognitive laziness. So this is a disadvantage idea. As interesting as the claim is, one limitation of this idea is that the authors offer no concrete measurement. So they tell us that metacognitive, so thinking, laziness can occur, but they don't tell us how they measure that. So this proposition, and here's the solution, this proposition might have more resonance, might have more traction, might be more solid if the research can design a measure of it. So essentially we have, again, this idea of a layered paragraph where we're describing the point. The point is overuse of Gen AI may result in dependency. And we're offering a limitation to that observation, even though it's a good observation. And then we're offering a solution, because if we're offering a limitation, it's good to offer a solution if you can. Okay. And again, we have our referent links, the claim, this idea, it's this proposition, which is the idea, right? So this shows us that we can link our writing, which is one of the other things I want to keep talking to you about. And again, we have a lot of language to do this. So my background is in linguistics, so language learning. And that's why I often come back to language use. How can we show this with language? So limitations could be a main limitation or a question, or it fails to do something. But importantly, critique in academic terms doesn't always mean negative. If you find something good about the paper, say that too. Okay, significant, landmark, cutting edge, comprehensive, pivotal, important. This is positive critique. Okay. So here's another example. This is the last example I'll show you. So lots of reading, which I encourage you to return to if you can. An advantage of using Gen AI for supporting writing production is that it makes the process of doing so easier, more efficient, and streamlined. However, Alter et al. Challenge this view, arguing that a crucial part of the education process lies in the resolving of what they call cognitive disfluency. Now, what that means is this. This is where students experience difficulty in working out answers to academic tasks or overcoming mental hurdles. And in so doing, they engage in higher order thinking. Okay, that's the idea of cognitive disfluency. This idea is significant as it highlights the role that resilience and cognitive effort play in the learning process. And the research by Alter et al. Adds to the understanding of the value of human engagement. So I'm showing you both sides of this Gen AI idea through these examples that illustrate our approach to writing. Okay, again, we have our description, which focuses on the key idea. And the key idea here is that Gen AI can make the process of writing easier. Yes, it can. However, there's a limitation about this. If we're using Gen AI all the time, then we're not doing the work. We're not exercising our mind. Okay, that's a limitation. And then we give some strengths critique. The idea is significant. It adds to our understanding. Now, I hope I'm not giving you too much information. I guess I probably am, but it's good to think about these key ideas, okay? And again, these are our reference links. This view, this, they, it, okay? So what we're going to end up with, I'm coming towards the end. If you're getting tired of listening to me, I am coming towards the end, Ahmed. So what we end up with is two types of language: our content language, which is about the topic, and our function language, which is things like cohesion, linking, highlighting, critiquing. The content language will be different for each paper, from person to person. The functional language is universal. Everybody uses it. Okay, so things like however, therefore, for example, this is important, this shows a question. That language is universal. You can use that any time, and it's always going to be good. That URL there, the University of Manchester Phrase Bank, is brilliant. It has a lot of these type of language lists, okay, for you to use. It's a really, really good resource, as is the other one. But that phrase bank is particularly good. It's really good. I can't recommend it highly enough. Okay, so what is going to happen to our sentence length is that when we're writing in this fashion, this sort of academic style, most of our sentences will be around 15 to 25 words. Not all of them, a lot of them. Okay, I just show you this to highlight some patterning. We don't want to write sentences which are constantly or consistently short, less than 15 words, because our writing will look like a bullet list. It will be choppy. And if we're writing too long, over 40, 45, 50 words, our writing can be difficult to read. These are not rules, these are just recommendations, all right? It doesn't mean you have to count your words, you don't. It's just an awareness thing, okay? So if, for example, you have a short sentence followed by a short sentence and they have a clear relationship, then join them, okay? If you have a sentence of over 40, maybe 45, 50 words, consider breaking it up, okay? Because we don't want to pattern, and I'm talking about habits of writing, we don't want to pattern too much at the short end or the long end, okay? I hope that's clear. Okay, so here's just some illustrations of what I'm talking about, okay? We have sentences where we have short, 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 okay? Sorry, I'll just... okay, sorry. What have I done here? Oh, I think I've confused myself. Sorry. What have I done? I think I'm just trying to illustrate here that we it's me joining sentences which are too short. I'm sorry. I think I've confused everybody. The sentence here, it's just too many short sentences, right? And what we're doing is we're joining sentence 1 with sentence 2, right? And joining sentence 2 with sentence 3 with sentence 4. Okay. So one big long sentence of 50 something words becomes 2 shorter sentences, right? That's the idea there. And here, where it's too long, okay, might become 55 words, too long, becomes hard to read. You can break it up in half. Okay, the idea of, again, making it shorter. I think I repeated some 2 slides there. Sorry, Ahmed, I made a bit of a mess of that. The formal language thing, if you know the formal form, use it. So don't use the verb got. It's sort of a low-level word. Received, a big deal, you'd use major. We don't do research, we carry out or perform or undertake. Rather than so, you could use therefore. Rather than like, use such as. Rather than but, use however. It's not a big thing, but if you do know the formalized form, then it's good to use it. Okay, some final tips. Be on task. Write within the word limits when you are writing in a university context. Be interpretive. Be analytical, not just descriptive. Be aware of cohesion. So it's the linking words I was talking about before. Sorry. That's it. They are my final tips. All right. All right. So before I ask this question to you, I'm going to just go back and look at the questions I have. Mohammed, the best way to acquire vocabulary is read. Reading is the best input in order to get better output. So reading gives you everything. It gives you sentence structure. It gives you vocabulary. It gives you punctuation. It gives you form. It gives you paragraphing. It gives you narrative. It gives you everything. Mohammed, if you can, the better reader, the better your writing. Okay. I've answered Sema's question. This is from Dua, is it academically acceptable to gather ideas from different Gen AI tools? More than one. To expand thoughts and write them in my own words and style. Yes, you can, Dua. Yes, you can. But again, don't offload the cognitive effort too much to the Gen AI. All right. I'm not saying don't use it. You can. But the more it does means the less you are doing. Okay. And academic work takes effort. It can be hard. Okay. Can AI, from Yahya, can AI be fully controllable in case of writing? It always presents risk regardless of benefits. I'm inclined to agree. It isn't fully controllable, no. I'm not saying, again, don't use it, but there is always risk. Yeah, 100%. Sama, I think AI does not give proper references. How can I avoid this? The way you avoid it, Sama, is you find them. Okay, you find the references, and then you'll know. It's laughing, and then you'll know that they're proper. Yes, it does. Some they're called hallucinations, okay, or fabrications. And I've just written a paper about this. Not simply about that, but that was part of it. It does that. It absolutely does it. And it's a well-known fact. So you do. Okay, here's the thing. At the very least, you have to critically ask questions of Gen AI and what it does for you. You have to look at it and really look at it carefully, because it can do exactly what you've just said there. It can give false information or untrue information. Sama says, really appreciate your class. Thank you very much. Could you please provide us more sessions in writing? That will so much depend on Ahmed. I'd be very happy to, I'd love to come back. No problem at all. Absolutely.
Same here, Steve. Thank you. Would love to have you again and again, for sure.
Oh, yeah, no problem. That's the least I can do.
عليه السلام. زي ما يقول قصة صالح عليه السلام.
I didn't catch that. What was that? Sorry.
Allah, I think you're unmuted. If you have a question, please shoot your question. If you don't want to ask, just mute your microphone. Thank you, Allah. I had a comment or a comment, not really a question, or a question, Steve, if you don't mind. Now, you talked
Yes.
about voice and that interpretive and not descriptive, being critical, being interpretive, being analytical. And I think when you talked about content that is generated by generative AI or tools, AI tools like ChatGPT or whatever, do you think that has the element of analysis or being critical, being, I mean, the human voice is evident when a person writes the piece or writes the essay or writes the text. But when those tools, it feels like you are reading a text that is parroting, it is yapping, it is just one sentence after the other, and that human voice is not there. That's
I
why
agree.
maybe it's easy for an educator or an academic to detect a text that is generated by AI or by a student. And I always tell my students that don't worry if you make mistakes in a text, but we want that unique voice, your unique voice, your unique experience. Tell us about it and don't worry about the technicalities of the text. What do you think about it?
Oh, you are exactly 100% correct. Okay. In my experience in Australia, most academics don't mind if you make some mistakes. They don't mind if the language isn't always perfect. They do want to see you. They do want to see your learning being evidenced. And the other thing I want to comment on something else you said around the depth of writing put out by Gen AI. It does feel a bit distant. It doesn't feel as authentic as the human voice. And, you know, particularly if English is not your first language, a smart academic will look at that and think that wasn't written by you. That they can see that straight away. And it's to me, it doesn't help you deeply engage in learning at the level everybody wants you to, and at a level that will optimize your learning. That's it. That's what it is. It's really about your learning, you know, and it comes back to the idea of why are you learning? Why are you doing this qualification? Why are you doing this program? If it's just to get marks, I get it. I understand that. If it's to get a job, I get that too. But surely something of this must be about education, right? And I think that's where someone like me and Ahmed are coming from. We're looking at it from an educative perspective. Ahmed, is that clear? Is that fair to say?
I can't agree more. I think that's the point, Steve. Thanks for making it. And I recall a paper by MIT recently talking about the impact of generative AI tools on critical thinking abilities of people who always really offload their cognitive abilities and just give it to generative AI, and then they are just recipients or passive receivers of whatever content that is generated.
100%. 100%. I can send you a couple of articles, Ahmed, if you want to send them on to the students in the class. Just a couple of journal articles about this very idea about cognitive offloading and metacognitive laziness and some of the dangers of it. Again, I stress it's not a bad tool. It's a tool. A tool is a tool, right? A calculator is not a bad tool. It's a tool. So it's not bad itself. It's maybe how we use it, which is either a good idea or not such a good idea. And I love what Yahya wrote. I love that. No learning without errors. Perfect. I love that. That's such a great philosophy and a great way to think about our learning. Just one final thing before I let you guys go is again, I'd love to hear from the students. What's one thing you've taken out of this? What's one thing? What's your takeaway? What has resonated with you? It sort of helps me with these type of sessions if I know what you can write in chat, or you can speak if you like. Any of your takeaways? Would anyone like to volunteer? I can say, I can certainly send you the PowerPoint, no problem, Samar, sure. Yeah. Actually, Ahmed has the PowerPoint, so he can send that on, and I will send Ahmed a couple of articles too. Okay, so Jude gives us an answer. It isn't always about the quality; it's rather about making progress always. Great, well done. I love it. Making progress. I completely agree. If I would like you to take away anything, it's about you being in the writing, using your interpretation, you saying this is, pardon me, this is why this is important. This is why this matters. This is why we talk about this. That's sort of my final, really my final messaging. Look, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this. I've really, really enjoyed seeing you guys in the room. Love dealing with Ahmed. You are very lucky, you guys. He is a wonderful teacher and a very, very a good human being. We're lucky to have such people.
Oh, really appreciate it. Steve, thank you so much for these kind words. We really appreciate your time. I've personally learned a lot, and I'm sure the students will appreciate the recording and the session when they watch it again, and even the students who are with us today. It's obvious from the feedback that is buzzing that they're appreciative of the session, and they really enjoyed it and learned so much. So we really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Steve. And we look forward to having you in another session, maybe in the not too far future.
I would be very happy to come back. Thank you, Sama. We send our love from Australia as well. And yeah, again, what can I say? I know, I don't know anything about your situation. I do know, but I don't really know. Nobody can know that is not living through it. We can't. But we do think of you. I do read about you every day. I'm in pretty regular contact with Ahmed, and we are thinking of you, and our thoughts are with you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank
We
you,
really
Sama. It
appreciate
means
it.
a lot to me too. Thank you very much. Ahmed, we'll be in touch, and I would
Sure.
love to come back.
Sure. Thank you, Steve. And we really appreciate the time that it's 9 p.m. now in Melbourne. Thank you for staying that long with us. Really
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it. Take care.
My total
And
pleasure.
we'll see you soon. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye-bye, everyone.